Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Mike, would you like to take this or me?
I'll take it.
Okay. We have a quorum, Kyle said.
Pull up the minutes, the agenda. Okay. It's April 19th. We have a GBS work session for 2022 budget review. Good Board of Supervisors, committees and subcommittees are subject to the Alaska Open Meetings Act, as found in Alaska Statute 44.62.310 and Anchorage Municipal Code 1.25. Public meetings. We operate under Girdwood Public Meeting Standards of Conduct. I am chairing, Mike Edgington, co-chair and land use supervisor. We'll do a roll call of other members. Let's start with Brianna.
Brianna Sullivan, Parks and Recreation Cemetery Supervisor.
Thank you. And Jennifer?
Jennifer Wingard, Roads.
And Amanda?
Amanda Sassy, Public Safety.
Thank you. And I don't see Guy on at the moment. Okay. We have an agenda in front of us. I would entertain a move to approve the agenda.
I move to approve today's agenda as written.
Thank you, Britton. And a second, please. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Do this by assent. So, any objections?
Real quick, Margaret's got her hand up.
Okay, Margaret.
Yeah, by accident, I added item number 5, which doesn't need to be on this agenda.
So I'll amend the agenda to remove number 5, if someone would second.
I'll second. This is Amanda.
Okay, since Brianna, since you made the motion originally, do you want to just make that have that as a friendly change to your original motion?
Yes, I move the first motion to approve with the removal of number 5.
Okay, so we have approval for the amended agenda in front of us. I'll do this by assent. Are there any objections? Not hearing or seeing any objections. The agenda is now approved. We will go through some announcements. The public is encouraged to ask questions and provide comment. Please raise your hand physically or virtually and wait to be acknowledged. To help discussion stay productive, please direct your comments to the board rather than other members of the public. Keep your comments focused on the business under discussion and be respectful of everyone's opinions. We'll move straight to item number 1, Fire Department Year-End Report.
Look at me. Hello there. I think Kyle's got slides he's going to pull up.
Yep.
Right, I did notice that Kyle's numbers were a little different than mine, but they're basically the same.
Your numbers don't incorporate IGCs.
Okay. And we'll go to the slide. So all in all, we had just wait for security alert. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so 2022 in review. If we look at risk reduction, we had 0 community fire fatalities or injuries. We had 0 OSHA reportable firefighter injuries or fatalities, and our property damage was limited to a greenhouse which got on fire in the mine roads and a commercial trailer that was on the Seward Highway. So we had no large structure fire damage in the community. So those 3 things are all very good things that happened. If we look under response, we had 450 incidents. 62% of those were EMS or rescue related, 38 were fire related. Of 90% of our EMS incidents required advanced life support. On our response readiness, 64% of our firefighters are Firefighter 1 certified. We were able to modernize our hose and appliances, i.e. nozzles, and some fittings, the Knox boxes and the mobile data terminals up to current standards. And then for training, we had a firefighter 1 and 2 and a hazmat operations class, which we were required to have. And then we had 3 staff certified to an NFPA extrication technician standard. And then we also were able to be the first department in South Central to use the DPS burn trailer to do our fire attack training. We're hoping when that trailer comes back online that we'll be able to use that in spring of next year to have another firefighter 1 class without the need to take people out of the valley to go to Anchorage to train. Obviously, go ahead.
Sorry, can I just quickly interrupt just to say that for the record, Guy Wade has now joined us. Thank you, Guy.
Okay.
Please
In
go
terms of in terms of medical access or for the community, 78% of our membership is operational membership is our EMT certified. And this jumped just as of yesterday to 91%. 39% of our membership are advanced operational membership or advanced life support certified. That's to an EMT3 or paramedic level. We will be transitioning most of the members to advanced life support members to EMTA status, which is going to be a change by the end of the year. And then we have 2 members that are currently in an EMTA class and 1 in paramedic school, another one who's probably going to paramedic school in fall. We were able to fill our vacant EMS training coordinator position with a paramedic. This was a Girdwood local, or someone who grew up in Girdwood and then was able to come back to Girdwood now. For rescue, I facilitated the big players meeting for Turnagain Pass for cell communications. Those number of meetings resulted in getting at least 1 new cell tower in Turnagain Pass. So happy about that and planning for another one. We also successfully lobbied the DOT for a highway safety grant, which brought $112,000 worth of extrication equipment to Girdwood, which just arrived 2 months ago. And then the AK legislative grant, also I lobbied that the senators for that, and we were able to receive $312,000 of extrication tools for ourselves and the other 11 departments of the Kenai Peninsula Borough. In terms of that, there will be those tools arrived in Anchorage today, and there will be a press conference with DOT and the mayor of Kenai Borough and some other fire chiefs, and you're all invited, and that will be Tuesday at 1300 or 1 p.m. at the fire station. And we're trying to hopefully get the additional, it's about $120,000 more that would outfit the rest of the departments on the Kenai Peninsula Borough and ourselves with fully funded for extrication equipment. So we want to be good players and thank everyone for the value of the extrication tools that are coming into play. And then additionally, the positive news was the rescue boat was funded and the 2 command vehicles were funded from the Medicare reimbursement money that went to the municipality. Okay, next slide. So if you look at our budget overall, we were under budget by $39,338 in labor and $8,796. So a total of being under budget of $48,134. I would say that we had some challenges, and I'll just review the challenges for the labor budget. We had low staffing coverage by paid on call, which left many shifts understaffed and open positions unfilled. We only met in the last 6 months, we only met NFPA staffing 20% of the time. Our staff held over often, trying to help with evening coverage. Myself and Match are covering on low shift nights, and it did lead to some burnout at the staff level and for some over responding local members. We are continuing to see attrition as local paid on call members moving to Anchorage due to housing costs. Experienced staff and members are recruited by other departments due to our lack of retirement plan. And then we implemented paid shifts for holiday and major events to make sure that we have enough coverage to respond to what's needed. And then we have also implemented a 3-hour shift flexibility for on-call members. And then so we were under budget last year, but it was tight, and those were the reasons that we were under budget. But Anyway, for this next year, for if we talk about non-labor now, we were under budget by $8,796. However, the contract that we've signed with Girdwood Clinic to do the firefighter physicals that are required under NFPA, that wasn't implemented last year. If we had implemented that, that would have been $35,000. So we would have probably been over budget by $26,204. Overall, I feel really good about things because we did not have to ask you guys for extra money at the end of the year. And so if you look at the big things, if we could go back to the first slide, or second slide, rather. If you look at the big things, the success of departments are usually based on the number of community fire fatalities or injuries. We had 0. The number of firefighter injuries or fatalities, we had 0. Property damage, we only lost a greenhouse. That was huge. And that greenhouse was fully involved. And that was, I think, the evening of Forest Fair. But anyway, no families were displaced from the community, and we were in budget. So I think 2022 was a win for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Weston. Kyle, do you have any further breakdown of?
Yes, let me get out of this.
And then Guy, do you have a question as well?
I do.
Go ahead.
Oh. Hey, Michelle, what does not meeting that NFPA staffing, is there any kind of penalty, or what happens?
If we had a firefighter fatality or injury, they'd probably come back and, when they did the root cause analysis on the national level, because it would be a national investigation, they would be commenting on that. And I'm not, 2 in, 2 out is where OSHA usually starts setting fines. I'm not sure if I'm not sure, at least I don't know in Alaska if OSHA would fine you for not having enough personnel, right? I think for this year, I feel a lot better about things, and I feel a lot better about things. One, because the Board of Supervisors funded extra fire staffing funds. And then additionally, I feel better because just in the last week, I was able to hire staff, bring on additional staff that'll be starting mid-May. And I feel that we will be meeting NFPA hopefully now a lot more time. I think we're going to see that stat dramatically go up because we'll have 3 people on shift at the fire station at any given time. And then we'll add 3 people that will be paid on call. And between those 6, I think that we will meet our NFPA staffing standard. I hope at least 80%. And you can say, well, are you going to meet it every time? Well, not when we have 3 calls going on at once or 2 calls going on at once, it becomes challenging. You might say, well, how often does that happen? Saturdays, Sundays, sometimes weird midday. It just all depends on what's happening on the mountain and things like that.
Okay.
But I'm at least feeling super positive about things going into the summer now that we have 2 extra people coming on full time. We have a floating EMS training coordinator that can jump on at any time who's moving to the Valley. And then we additionally have 3 people, ALS providers, that will be taking 1 shift additionally a week. So we're looking at having 4 people on hopefully as well on the weekends if we can pull it off, in addition to the paid on call members that are taking shifts.
And one of your new hires is a BLS, right?
One of our new hires is a one of our hires is a ALS firefighter 1. The other one is he's not, his EMT2 is expired, so as a condition of employment, he needs to get his EMT back, but he is a firefighter 1. And then additionally, we're training all our BLS, our current staff BLS, to be engineers. They're currently doing online training, but they're going to start doing other training. And then of our new members, volunteer members that are coming, the 6 members that are starting this weekend, Two are professional firefighters, have professional fire careers in their background. Two have EMT 2 experience. One is actually going to be a 3, but you know, I'm not sure if that she'll be a 3 for us, but at least she's a 2 in her current workplace. And then other 2 people are just very highly motivated. So super excited about I think it's very, and we just had 4 people finish EMT 1 class Tuesday night or Monday night, I guess it was. So super excited about how things are going at the moment.
Yeah. When you talk about staffing, you don't normally use super excited, so that's good.
I never use super excited. I think everybody else is like, we maybe have hope now, right? And I think how it will translate into, you know, because everybody's been holding it together, but I think you know, you can see the impacts of fatigue on people. And so hopefully having people feel that they are comfortable enough with staffing that they can take time off and take their leave that they are paid to have, you know, they can actually take leave, I think will make for happier people and happier relationships in their personal lives. And yeah, it looks good. I mean, who knows, it might all self-destruct again, but it looks good at the moment.
Thank you. Kyle, do you want to?
Jennifer's got her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Jennifer, go ahead.
Thank you, Mike. Michelle, I think you sort of covered this, but could you explain a little why, or do you have any theories on why you're finally able to use the word super excited?
Okay, maybe super excited is maybe over. I'm never super excited, right? Cautiously optimistic maybe is better.
Okay, but any idea about the variables?
Yeah. So variable wise, I mean, we have, I mean, the stress level, you know, everybody takes their job very seriously over there. And so when we don't have enough staffing or there's only 2 of us on at night, it's very stressful to everybody, right? And so I think having enough people for the initial response is going to be huge. Does it overcome the issues that the community is facing by having not enough housing that you can have like a lot of firefighter volunteers? No, it doesn't. But does it stabilize it a bit better? Yeah, it totally does. So hence super excited, cautiously optimistic. I think that it's really good. And, you know, truthfully, having extrication equipment that isn't 20 years old, that is actually built for the materials of the cars that we have to cut apart, also good, right? Having the command vehicles, although they're not, the municipality kind of dropped the ball in getting them fully functional, but having the command vehicles be not 16 years old, that's also huge when you're out there in the middle of a blizzard, right? I think things are having the boat coming in. Things are looking really, at least again, I'm cautiously optimistic, but it's really a positive thing. And what was super exciting was to actually have people want to work for us, right? Even when we don't offer retirement, you know, we have people that are taking large pay cuts to come and work for us because they care so much about the community and the fire department. So that's a good thing.
Thank you.
All right, I'll jump in there. Before I get started on this, I do want to commend Chief Weston for, you know, I've worked with her for many years on this, and she has done a great job riding the ship over there and working hard to get to a point where we have a surplus year on budget and we're not scrambling in the fourth quarter to figure out the money. And I put a lot of that on Chief Weston for her hard work to do that and really restructure the program over there to a more modern operating structure. You know, a lot of the old ways that didn't work anymore are gone and they've been refined. And I think their operation over there is strong and healthy. It's a good group of people. And we got young people coming in. So I thank Chief Weston for all the hard work to make that happen. And we look forward, and I thank the Girdwood Board of Supervisors for the increase in funding for 23, because I think that gives her more confidence to continue to strengthen the program and have a successful year. And we look forward to working with Chief Weston and Chief Garhart on the Engine 41 replacement. That's the next big task to get that figured out. So we'll be working through that, and that kind of leads me right into here. So what you have in front of you here is what we see on our side from the SAP accounting system. And so we have line items that are associated with the same thing that you guys approve each year. And so this is what it looks like at the end of the year. And so there are really, here in the non-labor, there are two things that you're kind of focusing on. There's the $30,000 and there's the $828,000. $828,000 is what we pay directly to the nonprofit for providing fire service in the Girdwood Valley. So that's all been expended. It gets paid out quarterly to the fire department. And then the $30,000, that's really associated with equipment. So mostly vehicles, so repairs. And then the AFD finance crew, when they get bills or they make payments, they assign different things to different things. So you can see there was like computer issues or computer supplies. That probably had to do something with the computers inside the rigs that they had to be replaced or they had to be fixed. There's tires, which you can see obviously there. One of the rigs got a new set of tires, so $5,300. Communication that might be associated with radios of some sort. I don't have the details in front of me, but what they do is they get assigned a different area, but it all kind of goes back to that original repair and maintenance supply budget there. You can see they came extremely close this year, just $32 left in that for there. I think this is one budget item we need to watch going into 24 budgets. I do think this needs a little bit of a bump. It's been at $30,000 for a long time, and we know nothing's getting cheaper, and their equipment is aging, so they will probably have repairs. So that may be something we take a look at, maybe bumping the $40,000 for 23, just depending on, we'll have a glimpse of how we're doing about halfway through on that budget. But a lot of times those bills don't really rack up until the fourth quarter when they actually start plugging all the invoices in that have been paid on that aspect. So the non-labor, $32 left over. Too bad. The next line is the transfer to other funds. That's the contribution to capital for $74,000. So that was transferred and moved over this year. So a full contribution has been given to that account for the capital account. And then the one below it is the loan principal payments. And this was set up to pay for Engine 41 in the hopes that we would probably take delivery of it and we could start loan payments on it. Unfortunately, we didn't get to that, but we did have a surprise this year that kind of fell off AFD's radar that they're supposed to pay every year. AWU has a water assessment that goes against fire stations every year because the amount of water it's used is more excessive with fire stations and other municipal buildings. So they put a special assessment. Well, AFD had fallen behind on paying those assessments. And so we had to pay a $15,000 assessment. So we knew that maintenance budget was going to be pretty tight. And so I said, well, let's pull it from the loan principal. And then I had put in a request that the remaining $64,000 there be transferred into the capital account. Unfortunately, AFD Finance wasn't able to accomplish that because of the timing of making the assessment payment in the end of the year. But this year we're going to really watch close because in our 23 budget, we do have that loan principal payment there. And I don't think we're going to buy Engine 41 this year, or at least start making loan payments on it. If anything, if we get going, we may get going on it, but probably will not take delivery of Engine 41 in 23. So overall, in the direct costs there, with the combination of the loan principal and the non-labor, there's a remaining balance of $64,000 there in that aspect. The next section we get into is IGCs, and this is intergovernment charges. So this is what departments charge us to support our departments throughout this. And so a lot of this in here is AFD and along those lines. So you can see the shop time down there is one of the largest expenses, and that's what we're paying for the shop crew and the use of the shop to have the vehicles in there and being repaired. And that was over by $9,000 this year. facility repairs was over by 22,000. Haven't a chance to dig into that, but there was some roof work that was done this year and other things, so that might be related to that. So that was over by 22,000. Pretty much what we got charged from AFB was pretty much on budget or under. The chief's office gave us a break and only charged us $3,000, so there's 11,000 left over there. But overall, with those expenses for the facilities and for the shop time, and one reason I think a high time for the shop time this year is Utility 41 needed a new engine. Is that right? Or Command 41?
Well, Utility 41 has been back to the shop multiple times. We also have a tender issue. We have lots of it. Yeah.
Tender's in now.
It's a revolving door of issues.
In 22, that Utility 1 had to go through an engine replacement, so that is quite a bit of time when you got a person on that. So I can see why those expenses added up there. So hopefully now getting these new command units in, we lessen the burden on those older vehicles and take those costs down on that aspect. For fire service collected. So the budget for this is revenue taken in from out of area calls like the Kenai Peninsula, Whittier, or fires outside the service area. The budget set for that was 21,000. 30,000 in revenue was brought in, so there was a surplus of 9,700 there this year. So that exceeded what we thought the estimates were going to be. A lot of times revenues are estimated fairly low because you just never know what you're going to get in a given year. So yeah, there was there. So overall, the surplus this year for the fire department was 59,000, with the bulk of that being the principal payments that were not used and were not moved over to the capital account. So that remaining revenue will fall into the undesignated account for the Girdwood service area. So bit of information there, but any questions associated with all that? Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I do have a couple. So the AWU, is that, how many years was that going forward? If we want to plan for that, it's not 15,000 a year. Were they behind more than 1 year, or will that be 15K every year?
I think they were 4 or 5 years behind on that payment.
Okay, so yeah. We're not looking at a huge cost like this every year on that.
No, and that's one thing I do have to talk with Dave Swarner about, is what to really actually try to find that and identify it this year so it doesn't slip by again. I just received another, and I think it has to also do with a bit, because I just received one for parks, which has now been sitting somewhere for a long time, and they say it's overdue. And I called them and they said, oh, we just discovered that we have this. So we have to figure out what's going on with AWU and their assessments against the city. Okay.
And the medical testing, you know, I that is expensive, but I think it's important. I was curious if in 23, that will probably occur in 23. Do you think, Chief Weston?
Yeah. Yep. The finalization of the contract was signed a couple weeks ago. So, you know, it started last year, but so I think probably in May, we're going to start seeing people go, we're going to start sending firefighters over there for their required medical tests.
You're able to do that on the Girdwood clinic, not go to work safe or whatever in Anchorage?
Yeah, yeah, we cool. Bid it, we used multiple, we requested multiple bids, and we ended up going with the Girdwood clinic, which I think is wonderful. We did reduce the scope of what we're getting done, so it's maybe not a full AFD medical, but we're still sort of hitting the high points. So happy about that, and really happy that we're able to keep the money in the community.
Cool. All right, thank you. That's all I had.
Hey, Jennifer.
It's a related question, kind of. I was unclear on those AWU payments. Is that like permanently now in our court, but am I understanding correctly, used to not be in our court?
It's a very good question. And I don't know if it had to do, like I said, I need to dig in this more. It could have had to also do with the expansion of the fire department when we put the expansion on, and there may have been a special assessment for the amount of faucets that were coming in now. So I don't know. I need to dig into that more, but it sounds like it's a standard thing that goes against the fire departments.
Were they already So, and this is from when I worked at AFD, a certain amount of our budget had to go to AWW for hydrant maintenance. So I'm not sure if that's also incorporated in
Could be.
that charge, because hydrant maintenance was a significant amount. It was like, it was this very large amount of money that was going from the Anchorage Fire Service area budget to hydrant maintenance.
Could be that. So
that's possibly why, and it's probably only $3,000 because we don't have all that. We don't have the hydrants everywhere.
And we hadn't paid it for 5 years.
Yeah.
So that probably is somewhere in there out. So yeah, we'll dig into more of that and see what's going on there.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions about fire department? Okay, so should we move on to police?
Sure. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, one of our smaller budgets, because we don't have a lot of extra expenses besides our contract costs, but overall, we really pay three things out of the non-labor budget. One is the contract to Whittier, which you see there for $708,000. We have $6,000 in rental fees to ACS for the substation, and then we have $10,000 in miscellaneous fees. Now, what throws off our accounting department is that when ACS sends a bill, it looks like a phone bill because it's on the exact same form. And so the lady who was paying that bill forever had always thought we were just getting charged for a phone service at the building. So that's why you see it there on a public utility service there. And then it kind of gets split around in different locations, but actually one did make it into rental. And so overall, we paid that out fully. In the miscellaneous, that's where we deal with abandoned vehicles. We deal with slush cup, Gorge Horse Fair, and New Year's special tow for the temporary impound yard. So we will have a vehicle or a tow truck stationed here, like this coming Saturday. It'll be a tow truck here from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Station for any impounds that are needed, either related to drag infractions or blocking hydrants or things like that. So, and then we also have expenses in there that we charge for, like we purchase temporary fencing for our impound yard. We have some maintenance things that we do for the building over there, basically just to make it better for the fire, for the police. And things like that, and interior enhancements in those areas. And then some rarities, if we have a disposal of dead animals or things like that, in the sense of a bear being shot or something along those lines, that account pays for those different things there. So overall, you can see there we were just $2,400 or $2,500 under budget. This year, so 99% of the budget was spent there. We did have some IGCs, and the accounts payable was much more this year than we expected, and that's just because of the amount of processing they do to pay the invoice each month. So probably 24 was way too low, as you can see there. And then overall, we were $2,300 under budget for this year for police.
Thank you. So, so just so I understand this, so to go through the first section, that $10,000 is mostly falls under the actuals of 6549, and then there's that other 366.
Yep, and then some of it I think got tied in different areas, but yeah, for the most part, it's up here. So
okay, yeah, okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? So let's move on to number 3, which is Parks and Recs and Cemetery.
Yep. So, quickly with cemetery, we had no expenses this year. We didn't spend any money associated with cemetery, so everything you'll see here is straight Parks and Rec. In our labor section, we had definitely a surplus this year because we were only able to hire one person, and then he only ended up working part-time and then half the season or maybe 2/3 of the season, and then took a new job. So we had a surplus in that area. One we would rather not see. It left a lot of work on us to do, but we're hopefully on to some new people this year and be able to use that account well to have some good employees here. And as you go through here, operationalize. So when I present the budget to you guys, it gets all broken out into different areas or different sections of the park. But in the end, a lot of it all just gets lumped up into this operational supplies there. So we were definitely under budget this year with that because we didn't do as much projects because of lack of staff in that aspect. But we did move to more contracted work to help us with different things out there and get things accomplished. And once again, the accounting codes kind of get mixed around as to who may be entering it at the accounting office in that area. Our office supplies, we just had a few that got tagged to us. So some of these things are related to the way they're cataloged or marked when they're put in by the accountants. Overall, like our grounds and maintenance service, we hired some more contracted work out to help us with that. We did have that in a different category, I believe, down here under contracted services. So it should have probably happened down there. And then we did have some rentals that we used. So we had some equipment rentals that we had this year to help us with getting some larger projects done in that aspect. And then overall, jumping back up here, we spent all the money for the nonprofits. So the $60,000 went out to the different nonprofits as set up through the budget process. And then advertising, we didn't do anything because there's no longer newspapers, and we actually probably next year in the 24 budget use that money somewhere else because we're not seeing a reason for advertising at this point. We do the milepost, but that's relatively small. That's about it now for advertising what we do. And then we have our public utilities going on here. So in that aspect. So overall, when you do add it all up, we were just 14,000 under budget for non-labor in 22. They're at 154. We did make our contribution to capital of 125,000 in that aspect. And then when you combine the non-labor with the labor, we were 28,000, or let's say 29,000 under budget there, because we just didn't use a lot of the labor that aspect. So, and then IGCs, you get into here, and you can see everything from purchasing services to the greenhouse, horticulture. That's our flowers for our spring planting come, and we did actually end up over budget there. I just think expenses last year with flowers were just much more. And I think we may have had a few things that we normally don't get delivered there. But overall, ADCs, just looking here, was 6,000 over. So I think that's just because expenses mostly tied up into our facilities with work here. And at the community center and just in the community center building in general. And then there were some other aspects with the daycare and the old Glacier City Hall over there. So they kind of get split between those two areas for facility costs over there. So IGCs, which are our control, but usually fairly close to budget each year. And so overall, that leaves us with 22,000. And then revenues, we did, see here, camp fees, everything. We did exceed our budgeted accounts by $1,800 for revenues. So that, in this case, would be campground fees, park permits, things along those lines. The community room is not in there. We keep that in the roads budget. Traditionally it's been there, so we just keep it there. But we did meet we did exceed our estimated revenues for 23. You know, a lot of our fees are $10 a piece an hour somewhere, so they're very nominal. Overnight camping's $10 an hour, $10 a night. So it isn't like we're generating great revenues from the programs that we host here. And then, so overall, our balance there, we have a surplus of 23,000, or let's say 24,000 when you round up for parks in 22. Take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, so we'll move on to roads budget.
Sure.
Thank you, Kyle.
Roads budget. So this is what in the labor aspect, this is where Margaret and I's time is. And I'm sorry here, it looks like when we transfer this to it usually separates it out. When we transfer it to a PDF, it kind of screws it up, but it still shows all the right numbers. It just didn't break out what the bottom line was for straight labor. But overall, we were under budget with our labor this year there, so that worked well. Here it is. I'm sorry, I just missed it. We were under budget by $1,000, so right on where we should be there. And then when you move into non-labor, you can see our operating supplies associated with street maintenance and also our office supplies. We're probably going to need to bump the office supplies, just toner alone. During the pandemic, we actually didn't buy any toner because we never printed anything, but now we're back to public meetings and more activity where the toner alone just kills us. It's just so expensive. And so we'll probably need to bump off supplies. It's been at 2,000 as long as I've been here, so at least 12 years. So that may come up. Our fuel was right on line, even though the fuel prices skyrocketed last year. Our fuel costs associated with the operation of the seasonal truck and then my truck right there online in that aspect. There's some gasoline issues. Those were related to I think that that came over from snow machines. And so that should have been accounted towards parks, but that got crossed there. So we had some repair issues there with snow machines for gasoline issues. And then computer supplies, pretty nominal. I don't know what that was for 106. And then reply and maintenance. So repair and maintenance supplies. Once again, this kind of gets jumbled around into these different categories. But that's usually mostly associated with like our sand, our winter chips, things along those lines coming in. So they might have landed down here in ground maintenance services instead with the 48,000 instead of up in that line. So once again, that's at the will of the accountant, what code they give it in that area. But overall, everything here was pretty much where it should be. So our non-labor, we'll go down here and take a look at this because what threw this off this year, you'll see the non-labor right now has a surplus of 284,695. And the reason for that is that we got reimbursed from the state for the Halloween storm damages. And part of that is some of that funding for those damages came out of our operating line in 21. And then we got a reimbursement in 22. So they just reapplied it to our operating accounts when those checks came in. So we actually spent much more than this in 22. And I think I might have made a note down here at the bottom. Yeah, so in FY, we spent 112,000, basically 113,000 related to repairs from the 21 Halloween storm. So those funds got reimbursed. We got a reimbursement for this damage from the state of Alaska for 125,000. And so there were some other items that ended up in there from 21 that we paid that got reimbursed to us. So it looks like we got more than we spent, but part of that 125,000 probably occurred in 21 in that aspect. So those funds landed back there. And so they got reapplied here. We're still sorting out where all the funds are landed and ended up. Accounting has been handling that, but I think some of the funds also went back into our undesignated account. That's where we originally pulled it from. and then we use funds from our operating account to help pay for things when we were dealing with that. So in the end, that ended up kind of throwing us off, and we're having 284,000 as a surplus, when last year we really did spend close to probably 600 and something thousand. And in the fall, I always leave a reserve about 150,000 for fall work. And in 21, we had a slow start to winter, and then it got real busy in December. But we didn't spend as much as we would have if it had been maybe more snowy November in that aspect. So overall, we had a little bit less expenditures in those last 3 months when we don't do road construction and we're just tackling snow and ice at that point in time. There. IDCs, moving down here, they were within budget. We had a surplus there of $1,241, as you can see here. So that was good to see with what we do there. These IDCs are a little bit more predictable because it's mostly associated with our administrative support that we get from Public Works and less about facilities and repairs. And so that's pretty straightforward there. So one thing you may notice is that we still are paying for SAP support, but now it's just general support. For those who were on the board when SAP first came online, and this is our accounting system, which was a kind of a big fumble by the municipality when they were trying to implement this program. We were paying some large payments at first to help pay the system off. They've gotten through that, and so now we're just paying like an annual fee for using the SAP system to support our accounting needs down here in that aspect. So overall, here's revenue. So we're getting the revenue, lease and rental revenue. So this has to really associated with the community room. And we had a really good year with the community room. We raised almost $11,000. Our prediction was $3,000, but we almost raised $11,000 in revenue out of the community room. So that was really seeing people coming back and doing rentals and birthday parties and meetings and things like that in the community room. Four Valleys hosting activities here. So that's kind of all picked up again. So that's good to see. And, and as you know, it is when we try to find a date to host a meeting here, it's difficult because a lot of times the room's being used in the evenings and throughout the day. So overall, it shows a surplus here of 294,000. So 295,000 when you round up will be falling into our undesignated account. And so we'll be paying attention to that once they do the audit of the undesignated account to see how much we have in there and where we like to move that money if we do. That could go towards a capital contribution, towards a special capital project, things along those lines. So we usually see an audit about midsummer of the undesignated account, and I can share that with you when we get it at that point in time. So open up for questions.
Thank you. So I'm struggling to interpret this without fully understanding how the money came back from the storm reimbursement, but maybe that's a good thing to do separately.
Yes, I think so. I still need to learn more. And the way I understood is the money that came back from the storm reimbursement was reapplied to the areas that it originally came from. Yeah. So when we started paying bills, we started paying bills out of our operating, which in the end probably was a mistake by accounting. They should have created a whole account code for this repair, but they started paying bills like we were normally operating, like this was a normal repair. And so when they came back, they had to reapply the money back to those different categories in that aspect. So that's why we ended up getting it put into here for 22, knowing that the money would eventually just fall into our undesignated account.
Yeah, understood. And obviously the first chunk of money got paid out of the that bridge grant as well. So
correct. Went back to the bridge grant and then went back in, and then I think one went directly back into our undesignated account too.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on Parks and Rec or roads? Sorry. Okay.
Let me take it back up real quick, and I'll just give you a quick summary of our overall operating expenses. So this is all the departments for the year, and And when you add up all our budgets, we have, 3.7 million in expenses, budgeted. And this year we spent 3.3 in expenses. And that's keeping in mind that we got that reimbursement from the state. As you can see, most of the departments came very close to spending their full, but we're all under budget. With fire at 95%, streets thrown off because that reimbursement is 77%, parks at 93%, mostly because of lack of staffing, and then police at 99%. So overall, this year we spent 89% of our operating budget in that aspect. And then our assessed value for Girdwood this year was 745 million, which gave us a mill rate of 4.92. And just to give you comparisons down here, this is 21 operating budget, and you can see more of a standard year there, where we're spent overall 96% of our budget, or 3.7 million in that aspect. And so what kind of screws these different things up is that the overall budget, like this one shows 3.8 million for 21, is that there were some account moves that maybe draw money from undesignated and put it into operating to pay for things, like some new purchase for the fire department, the emergency repairs, things like that. So it looks like it's more than, but the taxpayers weren't taxed at that level. It was money that was already existing and pushed into operating for the year. But what's interesting here is just the assessed value between the 2 years. So in 21, it was 668,000, and you can see that big jump in 22. We're definitely not seeing that jump in 23. It's much smaller. But due to that rise in assessed value, you can see in 21, with a lower overall budgeted number, we had a mill rate of 5.07, and then our number being up here, our mill rate dropped to 4.92. So you can see the difference between the 2 years there. So hopefully assessments are quieted down for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone up, but not by as much.
No, it's pretty modest compared to that. So,
yeah. Did I see something about capital down at the bottom?
Yes. So we just want to go through the capital list with you and just talk about what's on the list, and give you guys a chance to digest this. We do have this as old business at your new meeting, and we can always talk about adding or moving anything or modifying anything. But this gives you a chance here to go through it. And so what we do is we have everything broken out by different departments. And so Parks and Rec, we still maintain the Little Bears building on here, just because that was a capital project at one point in time, but that's really become more of a private sector now initiative. So that is basically, there's no update. It's in a pending status this time. I do like to put things on here that show accomplishments, just not that we have a list of things. We did finish that pedestrian crosswalk light, so that's great. We're reimbursed for the state for that, so that's good. One thing I'm working right now on the next thing for the Alyeska Highway is the purchase of mobile radar signs that can be moved around out on Alyeska Highway, and then having the state reimburse us for that. So we received quotes for that, and just trying to get solid contact with the state to get their approval on purchasing those so that we can get them here and then seek reimbursement for them. So sort of working through that bureaucracy to make that happen right now. The next one is the design build package for, well, we're just doing the design aspect at this point in time, and we have that ready to go. And as you know, thank you for letting me know about that. That was all a surprise to us. The next morning, we discussed that we were delayed by the assembly again. We do appreciate GBS members bird dogging that for us, and hopefully we get this approval at the next meeting, as now we're almost 2 months behind because of the purchasing delays. So you know, just to keep it in perspective, the contract right now we have, I think, is not to exceed of 236,000 with the design company, and that would have required no assembly approval before these new AOs were put in. So unfortunately, the new AOs are causing us a 2-month delay. that aspect. So we're keeping that along. And then overall, I put 1.8 million, but we think the bridge will probably somewhere be in the 1.2. The 1.8 is really the overall if we include the design and other possible features that are going to be associated with it. So we're just sort of tentatively planning for as high as that, but we'll find out as we get into design. Master plan development for Alyeska Playfield. We really feel that is a strong project that should happen after we get done with the bridge, and then hopefully after we get done with this trails plan, we can really dive into that. And really after we get done with the trails plan, I think we can start focusing on that. And we talked about, and I still have it noted here, that at the last time we went through capital projects, GBOS suggested combining both the master plans for the Girdwood Forest Fair, Girdwood Park, and then Alyeska Playing Field, Moose Meadows. So we will start bringing that up once we get into a comfortable spot with the Girdwood Trails plan and have time to start tackling that project. And part of that would lead to the redevelopment of the Alyeska Playing Field area, but we feel the master plan needs to be completed before we can jump into any construction out there. But there are definitely needs for improvements in that whole facility area out there. We still continue to have a dog park on our set of capital projects and ideas out there, and then a new pavilion at Lions Club Park. Now we have a set of plans pretty much completed for that, and we've been working with Lions Club, and we sort of set a goal with them to raise money and then seek grants. One thing we are waiting for is the land and water conservation grant to come out again from the state. They're right now in the process of SCORP, which helps to guide the funding or where the funding goes from that grant out into the state. So we're hoping that we'll learn more here, as we've been told that they may be towards looking at doing that grant again in the fall. But if that grant does come through and the guidelines fit towards it, that could be a great grant for this project. So we're working on that as we move forward there. And then the batting cage. This is something I think we might be able to privately get funded, thanks to the great efforts of the team that raised money for the ball field. We may be able to accomplish this project with the $17,000 they put forward. And then there's been some other donations to the baseball group. And so we're going to try to work on that this spring and summer and see if we can get that accomplished out there in that aspect. And if we can't get it in 22, then we may chase it in 23 and go for a challenge grant through the Parks Foundation there. So quickly jumping over, well, just before I jump out of parks, is there any questions associated with any of these capital projects? Not the same having you guys not in the room. I can tell you're not nodding. We'll jump into street maintenance. So one thing we're going to try to pursue this summer is getting this Lake Tahoe road culvert taken care of. I do feel strongly that we can do this through our through our term contract with Western. Western has given us a bid of $194,000 for this project. The estimate from the engineer was $189,000. And what he was missing in there was the mob demob fees. So when they have to mob all their equipment down here in special trucks, and then once they're done with the project, they mob out, which is standard in contractors' expenses. So we feel real comfortable with the bid they gave us. They did an excellent job last year on the fish culvert over on Stowe, and honestly, it's this type of work is right in their wheelhouse. One thing about the Lake Tahoe project that makes it quite a bit more expensive is that we have to lower the water line there. And in order to put a properly sized culvert in that is also fish passage, and what I mean by fish passage is you fill the inside of the culvert 20% with gravel, so it creates a natural bottom that the fish can swim up. And so we have to put a larger culvert in there, get sunk lower, so the water line will be lowered in that section. during it. So that just adds complications of putting in temporary water lines to keep residents fed, and quite a bit of digging and pumping out water and things like that. So that kind of raises the cost there. So you know, these projects have been sitting on the shelf for quite a while, and with the contract like we have now, we need to get moving and just get this project done. Those culverts are not getting any younger. So we'll be pushing forward on that this year and try to get that done in that aspect. The other two large culvert fish projects is Mount Hood and then Alyeska or Davos. Excuse me, I read it here twice, Mount Hood, that's supposed to be Davos there. And so the first one would be Davos at 505,000. And then the next one would be Mount Hood Road at 653,000. And these are the engineer estimates in here in that aspect. We don't broadly share that. So I don't make notation that it is an engineer estimate, because when an engineer bid or a contractor bids on it, we don't want them to be coming right on the price there. Hopefully it can come in lower. But the 653,000 for the Alyeska Creek at Mount Hood is because, once again, we have to lower the water line there in order to install that culvert. But down there at Davos, there's no water line to contend with, so that one is not as expensive. So we have submitted 2 grants with the state. Thank you to Amanda for getting that going for us, and then we've done another application for each, and they seem very favorable with the state because we had complete design docs, engineer estimates, all done. And so they like seeing that, and it's basically a shovel-ready project. So that is there. So.
Are those descriptions? Sorry, just quickly. Are those descriptions the wrong way around? Because isn't it Mount Hood where it needs to be redirected or realigned?
Yeah, actually, yep. I'm sorry, my pricing is backwards. So it should be 653,000, and the next one down here, Davos, should be 505,000.
Right, and the third one is Davos. Got it. Thank you.
Let me see here. The next one is the power to the Girdwood area service lot there, or street maintenance lot. We'll be talking more about this shortly, but this is just something we've had on the list for a long time. And we'll try to push forward on that and get that done. Another one is a storage garage at the road maintenance lot. So for future planning, I just roughly throw out $1 million. We don't really know what we want yet, but we know that someday the Glacier City Hall will become unusable. So it'd be ideal to rebuild a new warm storage garage down there at the industrial lot. And then one thing here, repave Alberg Road, that's completed. So we did complete that in 21. So that's holding up well. We'll be doing some crack sealing out there this year, just because the road does shift through the winter. And then a covered sand storage. Yesterday we were in Whittier, and I was looking at some of the things they had over there for coveralls, and it re-strengthens my confidence that a coverall or a fabric vinyl roof system, basically like a dome, could work well within our environment. They handle Whittier, and I think Whittier is a good testing ground for things like that. So overall, we still like to pursue this idea at some point in time to get that figured out. So we'll continue to look at that and see what we can do. And then overall, just continue to build a general savings for street maintenance as we go. It's difficult to do because we're trying to balance the impact we have on residents with taxing, and then also keeping up with projects that are reoccurring. But I still feel we have to find some way to make that work, and maybe through this economic power that's coming to the housing and economic power coming to the service area. Maybe in the long run, there could be a different way to help raise capital funds through maybe some type of taxing mechanism or something along those lines. It doesn't put all the burden on the taxpayer. So some food for thought as we start to really dive into those type of issues. So
I do have a question going back to the structure at the maintenance lot. Would that require a move away from annual permit to some other land lease or long-term lease or some other structure, or because it's MOA land, is that not really a problem for us?
There is no real precedent for it. And so, we're an MOA department working with the MOA department as our landlord. And ideally, yes, I would love to have that all platted out and it's confidently say, yes, that's Girdwood Service Area Street Maintenance Lot. But right now, like you just stated, we're just under a yearly permit to operate there. And so, but I think the real test of it's going to be when we want to do this electricity and put this in. And, every land manager that's been through has always said, yes, no, that's your operating area. Unfortunately, where we're structured right now, it's still our land that we manage as the land manager, but you should actually be the land manager on it. In order for us to do that, we have to do this platting. We just go through the list of issues that we talk about all the time. So I think they recognize it as very much our area. I think they would have a heck of a battle to come in and say, okay, we're going to kick you guys out. And then, well, where's this operation of this municipal service going to go to then, in that aspect. So yeah, I think that's something we would really tackle. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens when we really try to go through this permitting or this power improvement a lot.
Yeah, because we have, both in power in both senses, both electricity and we do have more options under Prop 7.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So last one here is fire. And yep, it went into here. We have pretty much caught up on a lot of things. Utility and Chief 41 replacements are in action, so that's great. And then Engine 41, it's really in the fire department's ballpark right now to get their specs figured out and then figure out how they want to go out and pursue purchasing one. We started to pursue that avenue with looking at the intergovernment loan and working that out, and we had support for that. But things kind of got gummed up when Utility 41 and Chief 41 need to be replaced. So the department's focus really got there on that. So I think they're returning the Engine 41. They're going to try to work that out through this year, and that most likely will be a project in 24. And then hose replacement has been funded and taken care of. So really, I think the largest writing issue for a capital right now with them, I'm sure there will be smaller ones like more turnouts and some other gear. But the larger capital purchase is that Engine 41. So I see that being really worked on through this year and hopefully even moving into maybe purchasing by early 24. So yeah. Otherwise, no capital purchases at this time for the police department. We are playing a lot of phone tag and the challenge coordination with ACS to get them in there to help us with doing improvements in the building. We've talked to the ladies 3 times. Now it's spring. I'm really encouraging them to make the drive. They all work remotely now. They all work in the valley, so sometimes they're not so motivated to get out and go. So I do have a note to call them tomorrow and talk more about getting a date set to come down and look at the building and talk about the improvements we want to do in there. So yeah, that's still being worked on. So that most likely we may be coming back to the board once we know a number, and we'll look at a funding source to help pay for that improvement.
Would ACS be interested in doing what was done before, of treat it as effectively as an additional monthly payments? It looks so it becomes effectively an operating cost.
I haven't got that out of them. I really haven't got anything out of them. So
okay.
we will ask that, because yes, last time our rent now is $600 a month, and then for the first 3 years before we paid additional $600 to pay off the improvements to get the substation originally set up. So yeah, we will ask about if they'll be acceptable to go that route.
That's easier than having the capital available first. That's all.
Correct. Very true.
It's effectively a loan from ACS.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then one thing I just want to touch on, and we don't want to keep you guys too long tonight, but there's plenty to read, and please ignore this right here. These numbers aren't accurate. I put them in wrong, and we need to update them, but these would be our capital accounts. I think our capital accounts are much larger because of contributions from 22, and that didn't represent it. So we'll try to update that and present that to the board once I get a chance to dive into it there. So, but below is just projects that we did in 22. And once again, I gave Margaret the wrong one here, and I'm going to switch over real quick and I'll just show you what we have here. Let's see here.
You can just bump over to the new packet.
Oh, okay. Just real quick. So this is in the new packet, which is online. So you can go through and read it. And this just talks about all the different projects that we did for road and street maintenance in 22. And it breaks it down by every location, street, and particularly house too. If we did something like with a culvert replacement out on the street, things along those lines, and then, you know, all the different little things that happen. So we just keep a tally of it, that aspect. And then it talks about material orders and yard maintenance projects. And then down below, I just tried to include some pictures so you can see the different projects that were out there and accomplished and what the work looks like in progress. And gives you a perspective of what's going on out in the field throughout the summer, different projects. So yeah, this is the fish culvert that went in on Stowe. It's pretty cool. You can see the different setups we have to do associated with it, and then sort of the final product as they go in. And then here's our sand storage. And then this is the Ruan paving and sort of the final product to get to the final drainage there on Ruan. This picture right here, you can see that on the right is on a sort of a high flow day. And it looks like the culverts are getting towards the top. But what happens with these type of culverts and the way they're set up is they cause like a whirlpool or a water slide effect. So the water kind of gets stopped here and then it just shoots through in that aspect. And that's why a box culvert is neat here. This is terrible fish passage the way it is. It's just so much current being shot through there. And so fish have a hard time pushing up through that. And so, you know, what we put back in was fairly close, a little bit bigger than what was there before. But now that we have that funding coming for the fish box culvert from the feds, we will probably get to work on that this fall. We'll need to secure the other half of the funding, which the administration and the players in the administration at the time had an idea, but those players have all left. But luckily Ken Colhase is still there. So, and he was the PME of the project management and engineering director before, or public works director before he went over to become city manager. So he's pretty in tune with that. And I think he'll help us find the final funding to get this project completed. So, and then most likely they were talking about coming from AWU because there's the sewer line coming through there too. So anyways, you can just give an idea, but this drainage is doing great. The new system, the thing they built is just great. We're now having another flood and now we have all this armory up here of rock that should really help protect us from it eroding, at least not as fast as it did last time. So yeah. And then switching back to, there's a ton of reports in here, and one from Parks and Rec, and Margaret went through and did a great job of, I just opened the same thing, jeez. Went through a great job of updating all the Parks and Rec projects for this year. So you can see that in there as well. You can see that's all last year's. And then there is all the nonprofit reports in here as well. So final year-end report activities. So you can see what they've done with their money, what their accounting look like, everything along those lines. And so that looks great. And then there's an invasive weeds report from the alien species, or Tim Solid, that does our invasive weed report. And then there's an end of year Whittier Police there. See it here. It's this Parks and Rec end of year budget. See roads. Yeah, we'll have to include that if it's missing. Just not showing up here. Anyways, there's a Parks and Rec one that will be in there, but that packet will be updated and we'll make sure to send that link out so you can look at that in that area. So that's just kind of an overview of everything for 22, and let's open up to any questions you guys may have.
Any questions from the board?
No, thanks. Oh, thanks real, Margaret and Kyle for putting this all together.
That's what I was going to say. This is so much. All these reports, I didn't look down, and it's still going. And that was really great explanations, Kyle, of everything. So I was listening closely, and lots to take in.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Well, sorry to say echo, but I was going to say that as well. I particularly appreciated the attention to detail on things like the culvert replacements and what was and wasn't included on the RFP response. And so that just is super helpful when we're looking at the numbers and why they're bigger than estimates and things like that. I did have a question about the capital projects list, because it seems like I would agree that it's great to have a list of the things completed. Sometimes I get a little confused in like what's completed and what's not, or more precisely kind of how to look at that list and think about how to prioritize and explain to the community, but both of those. And so I wonder if it might also be useful to pull out the completed projects. So we have a list of what we've completed and a list of what we're working on. Just in terms of, again, mostly thinking about priorities. And then my question is, and I asked this before, but just to ask it again, is there's nothing we can do about the bike path along Arlberg because it's DOT. Can I just confirm that? Is that correct?
Yeah, you mean the bike path along Alyeska Highway?
Sorry, yes.
Yes, no, there's nothing we can do. Our tax funds don't work within that area. I mean,
thank you very much.
Money-wise, there's nothing you can do. Lobbying-wise, there's plenty you can do. It's just a matter of how much you really want to spend lobbying time on it. So,
right, exactly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carl. I had a couple of quick questions as well. One is on the funding from, or the AWU part of the funding for the box culvert. Is there anything you think we may need to do on the political side for that? Or is that
no,
going to sort of magically appear?
I think what I need to do is get a better grasp about if that federal money has come in, and then figure out what is going on to get ready for it. And usually I get a notice from our accounting department that says, hey, that money has arrived and it's being processed by OMB, but I haven't heard anything at this point in time. So I'm not surprised with what's going on right now. So I'll follow up on that, and I'll talk with, Todd Jacobson from the Bouquet Company helps us so much with all these type of projects. And so I might have a conversation with him to kind of pursue how we approach that. And really, I think it's when we get some time with Kent to say, hey, Kent, who do we talk to find out where this money is? Because he was very well aware of it, and that was part of the lobbying package that was sent to the Murkowski office.
Okay, thank you. My other question was about Glacier City Hall. We've kind of acknowledged that it's probably not going to be, we're not going to upgrade it for new childcare facilities. It doesn't look like that's the most likely path in the short term. I'm wondering what should we be looking at some other, it's not for 2023, but in the next year or two, should we be looking at some other use for that, or something we have to do to stop it from falling apart?
Well, we do try to actively maintain it through the maintenance program. Like we have roof leaks, they get up there. I think the biggest issue with both buildings is the roof, and they put a ton of attention into the Blow Bears roof last year, and I'm requesting them to get up and take a look at the roof this year, just walk around, fill holes, put in screws where screws have popped out, things like that. And just try to salvage what we have up there.
Yeah, but it's salvage rather than replace. I mean, we're not gonna fund a replacement roof, I don't think.
No, and you can't, because as soon as we take that roof off, it just opens up a can of worms associated with
Right.
structure. So if we peel the roof off, then it just triggers all these muni codes on it. So we're just trying to salvage what we have there until really the importance of that building it's a great building for us because it's warm, but it also supplies all the water to the Little Bears. So it's very tied to the Little Bears building.
Yeah, but I mean, in case of both things, we probably, the next couple of years, we're going to have to look at what we do longer term.
Correct.
I'm optimistic that there'll be other childcare facilities appearing.
Yes. Yep. And then I think we can get very creative to figure out what the replacement is for a utility aspect for us for street maintenance.
Yeah, or if that becomes at the yard and that stays at the yard and that area is used for something else. Okay, but we don't need to discuss that any further now. Any other questions or comments? I mean, I'll just echo the same as everyone else. Thank you for putting it. It's you get mired in this kind of month-to-month activity. I think looking back over the year, you just realize how much got done. So again, thank you very much for staff and managing the contractors and volunteers to get all this work completed.
Yep. No, it's nice to see it. So we enjoy it too. We get to look back at all of it. So, but thank you. We thank the board for their support through all this and always your gratitude. It helps to make the job easier.
Thank you. If we're not doing number 5, so I will just formally open it up for public comment. Any public comment? Not seeing or hear any, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. This is Brianna.
Thank you, Brianna. I think I heard a second there. Thank you very much. Again, thanks so much for the presentation.
No problem. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.